Council. Today is Wednesday, July 11th, 2018, and I call the meeting to order. The first order of business is the approval of the agenda. Can I have a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
Sorry.
Madam Chair,
Sorry.
I move that we amend the agenda to include the following business item: discussion of attorney-client privilege matters relating to the matter entitled Twin Cities and Western Railroad Company versus Metropolitan Council, Hennepin County Regional Railroad Authority, and Sioux Line Railroad Company, and Surface Transportation Board matters related to the litigation and the acquisition of the Kenilworth Corridor and the Bass Lake Spur for the Southwest Light Rail Transit Project, and the matter entitled Lakes and Parks Alliance of Minneapolis versus Metropolitan Council, that's civil number 0:14-CV-03391.
Thank you. Do we have a second to? Second. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? The motion is adopted. The next order of business is the approval of the minutes from our June 27th meeting. Can I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? The motion is adopted.
Right.
Oh, sorry, we need to go back up and actually
Yeah.
approve the agenda since we approved the motion. Sorry.
Madam Chair, I'll move the agenda as amended.
Thank you.
Second.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? The agenda is now adopted. Thank you. Okay, so at this point in the agenda, we have an opportunity for the public to speak on any items that are not on the agenda. So if anyone would like to come up and address the council, I would just ask you to limit your comments to 3 minutes. Welcome. Close up the end of this. How do we, so somebody will. Okay.
Hi, I'm Mark Hughes, and I'm Metro Mobility First Transit user recipient. I look at that, and there's something I think you should know. And one of the reasons that I'm still looking to have the MTC governance thing is because on July 5th I had set up a ride to go to Minneapolis. And then I had said I was going to meet him back at the house at 5 o'clock to pick up my PCA and go down to the Lynx game. They had called and moved the ride at 5 o'clock to 5:19. I said, fine, they have the right to do that. So I was there a little before 5 o'clock waiting around, and my half hour expired. And I waited till about 10 to 6 and called in, and yeah, it'll be another 5 minutes and the guy will be there. Driver. Nothing happened, so I called again. And they said, oh yeah, we made a mistake. We had him pick you up on the Nicollet Mall at Minneapolis Library. And I said, well, I'm home. I told you I was going. So we unscrewed all that mess, and the driver showed up at 6:30, and we got to the Lynx game finally with about 3 minutes and 40 seconds left, first quarter. And, we've had this happen so many times, and it's always been, I'm sorry. I don't know, if you're going to have sports tickets, you'd like to see the whole game. And there are circumstances that happen beyond everybody's control. But in business today, you either manage something or you don't. And this has been going on, and I don't know, and I think we need to have another meeting to discuss the issues that I've brought forward. And I just, I've been over here telling the same old story time and time again, and I'm looking for a solution. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other members of the public that wish to address the council? Seeing none, then I think we can move on to the consent agenda. The next order of business is the approval of the consent agenda. Can I have a motion and a
Move
second?
approval of the consent agenda.
And a second?
I'll second.
Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? The motion is adopted. Next, we'll move on to the reports of the standing committees. We have the Environment Committee, Councilmember Wolf.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Business item 2018-174 is a request for approval of amended guidelines for the inflow and infiltration program and an authorization to award grants pursuant to those amended guidelines. I'd like to thank Metro Cities for advocating for legislative funding for the I&I grant program. The 2018 legislature and the governor appropriated $5 million to the council for I&I grants, in addition to the $3.739 million appropriated in 2017. These state bond funds can only be used on public infrastructure projects such as pipelining and replacement, pipe joint sealing and chimney seals, manhole lining, replacement, sealing, joints, castings, and covers, flood mitigation, and cross-connection elimination. Staff have proposed in the guidelines to increase the allocation to eligible cities from $25,000 to $50,000 as outlined in attachment A of the business item, and are also requesting solicitation be reopened to allow all eligible and interested communities to have an opportunity to apply for the additional funds. Therefore, I move that the council approve the proposed action as written in the business item.
Thank you. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Any discussion? I would echo your thanks to Metro Cities for this. I think this is a really exciting one, and also to staff. Any other discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? The motion is adopted. Next, we move on to Councilmember Wolf. One more item, sorry.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Business item 2018-175 is a request for approval of guidelines for an inflow and infiltration demonstration project grant request for proposals. A 2016 Inflow and Infiltration Task Force of community officials recommended that MCES complete a demonstration project that provides additional measurement of the impact of mitigation in the local systems. To support funding of a project that demonstrates a reproducible approach to address I&I from private infrastructure, the Met Council will implement a grant for a demonstration project. At least 50% of the project costs must be contributed by the community and will highlight the ability to demonstrate effective techniques for inflow and infiltration mitigation of private infrastructure, utilize temporary flow metering to locate sources of inflow and infiltration within the proposed project area, and provide measurement of the impact of mitigation on base and peak wastewater flows, and detail the cost effectiveness of the mitigation strategy. The proposed projects should be planned for completion by December 2021, and projects that extend beyond the completion date may be considered if an explanation of the extended schedule is included. Project proposals must be received no later than August 31, 2018. And I'm going to go off script a little bit here because I'm so excited about this. This has been something that we've been working on for a really, really long time, because we've been able to get pretty continuous funding for public infrastructure for the city pipes that connect to our interceptors, but it's been really, really hard to get funding for the private service laterals that go from people's houses to the city's pipe in the street. And that's a big part of the problem where I&I is coming from, because those pipes will crack and the homeowner can't tell, other than that they have to get the rooter man to come out and get the tree roots out all the time. They don't realize that they have cracks in their pipes that are letting rainwater get into our system and impact our system. So it's been hard to make the case for public funding on a cost-sharing basis or whatnot for a return on investment, like we have seen the return on investment on the public infrastructure with our I&I grant program. So having this to document the cost savings when you actually take care of those private service laterals is really important for future funding. If it's even if it's not state funding, cities can see if we chip in for part of the cost and the homeowner chips in for part of the cost, everybody's going to save if we have that quantified by this research project. So I'm so excited that it's going to happen. I just want to tell you how great this is. We vote on it. Therefore, I move that the Metropolitan Council authorize the regional administrator to approve the guidelines for an inflow and infiltration demonstration project grant as described in attachment A for up to $500,000.
Thank you.
Second.
Any discussion?
Madam Chair,
Member Munt.
I am thrilled by this. We had a situation in Mound where this was needed, and we heard from a lot of homeowners that they don't have $6,000 sitting around and to properly connect their sanitary sewer. And this is fantastic news. Congratulations, Wendy.
Thank you. Any other comments? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? The motion is adopted. The next is the Management Committee. Councilmember Chavez.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This is business item 2018-164, the Net App Storage and Support Services Contract, 18P012. The Council's enterprise-wide NetApp electronic storage and support services consists of critical equipment and services needed to support much of the Council's primary file storage. Our existing equipment and support agreement is at its end of life, or end of the term. A formal request for proposal was issued, and the response from Exigent was deemed it advantageous to support the Council's storage needs. The procurement was determined it was competitive. Funding for this enterprise agreement is included in the Information Services operating budget. We lacked quorum at the June 27 Management Committee meeting. Therefore, this item comes to the Council agenda without recommendation. Madam Chair, I move that the Metropolitan Council authorize the Regional Administrator to execute a contract with Exigent Solutions, LLC in the amount of $1,330,000 for a contract period up to 5 years to provide ongoing equipment, installation, migration, and support services.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? The motion is adopted. Next, we'll move on to other business. The next item is an information item regarding operator hiring and State Fair Park and Ride service. So I'd welcome Brian Funk. Welcome.
All right. Good afternoon, Madam Chair, council members. Again, my name is Brian Funk. I'm the Deputy Chief Operations Officer for the bus system with Metro Transit. I'm here today to brief you on operator hiring challenges that Metro Transit's currently facing, and it's directly impacting our brand promise of service reliability. And most importantly, I want to be able to brief you on how we're addressing those challenges and that we aren't just accepting the current marketplace. Right now, our booming economy is great for the region, but one of the challenges is that it's hurting our ability to recruit and retain employees, in particular our bus operator employees. Our near record low unemployment rate of about 3.1%, coupled with an extremely competitive market for professional vehicle operators, has resulted in a 33% decrease in applicants this year as compared to the prior two. Recent local and national news outlets have been covering this challenge. We're not immune. Just last week, the Washington Post reported that the trucking industry has more than 60,000 vacancies nationwide, and it's only going to get more challenging. Our problem is compounded when factoring in retirements and operators who are moving into other roles at Metro Transit. That's one of the good things, is that at Metro Transit, the bus operator position can be a gateway into the organization. So far this year, we've hired 87 new operators. Normally, that would be a pretty good sign out of our group. However, we've hired 87, yet more than 36 have retired this year already. 85 have moved on to other pursuits. 18 have transferred into other roles, and 8 have received promotions within the organization. So when you add up those numbers, it quickly shows that we're at a deficit, and that's what the chart here shows. This chart is for approximately the last year, and you can see that just over a year ago, we were above our quote-unquote planned or ideal staffing levels, where we have a sufficient number of operators for our planned work plus an extra board contingent who fill in when employees either are taking paid time off, in training, or otherwise unable to perform their driving duties. And since late last fall, we've started to see that drop off. It's coincided with that stark decrease in the incoming applications. We were able to level out and get through the winter and the Super Bowl, but the decrease and the decline has started to increase dramatically. And what this has resulted in is really a much more noticeable challenge for service for our customers and for staff who are still here working. No doubt, as I mentioned, and as the slide shows, we're about 80 operators below our planned levels. We're able to operate and fully function if we're about 30 operators under our plan, because ideally we have about 1,500 bus operators filling those positions. Right now, we're at that tipping point where it's starting to result in lost service. We do have other groups of employees who are former operators who can fill in, as listed here, instructors, mechanics, other standby employees. However, when we are running out of those employees, it results in lost service. We attempt to communicate with our customers the best we can. On the right is a screenshot actually from my phone for some of my trips that have been canceled. On the Route 133, we try to do that as near time as possible, but we know that not all of our customers have options, and this creates serious inconvenience, and it causes them to second guess whether or not Metro Transit is the right long-term option for them. As you know, as frustrating and dire as this is, I'll say that through June, we've had about 350 scheduled pullouts, as we call them, buses on the street that have not made it out onto the street. Now, to put that in context, that's out of more than 184,000 scheduled pieces of work. And so while we're still delivering on more than 99.8% of our service, this is enough that is a cause for alarm for us, and looking at what's in the region for available workers and what is happening with the economy and national other transit agencies facing the same problems, we know that we have to do something different. So I'm going to move into some of the new recruitment and retention initiatives that we have in place. The business, Metro Transit Bus Operations, is a longstanding partnership with Human Resources. And earlier this year, we established a new workforce development division led within the Human Resources Department here at the Council. And so there's been a lot of great work being done. To quickly outline a few of those items, the operator outreach pilot. Our employees, our bus operators, know the job better than any of us. They know it better than I do, better than our human resource recruiters. And so we've been engaging with our operators who want to go into their communities, to our events, and be able to talk about what this job is, what it can do, how life-changing it really can be. We've also begun an operator readiness pilot program. One of the feedback points that we had is that people applying for jobs weren't exactly sure either what they were getting into or how to navigate the process. And so we've been partnering with job centers in the area to establish classes where we're providing training to ensure people are prepped and ready to go. You don't need a CDL to start. However, you do need that permit. And so we're working through all of that to ensure that those critical pieces, every little bit of the job application is completed and people are ready to go and aren't disqualified or not considered because of a simple clerical error. Later this month and early next month, we're beginning an operator mentorship pilot that's really aimed at retention. So we know that a fair number of our employees don't make it for 2 years. Either they aren't able to be successful in their evaluation period or they seek other employment for a variety of reasons. And so we've been working for a long time, and staff has done a fantastic job working with the Transportation Learning Center and other folks in Washington, D.C. to look at a formal mentorship program for our bus operators. This is a registered apprenticeship program that we're in the process of vetting now through the state of Minnesota, Indeed, and we believe that this is a fantastic opportunity to match up experienced professionals with new employees so that they're able to successfully navigate, in particular, the first couple of years of their career. Additionally, we've expanded our marketing footprint, and so thanks to staff at the council, Kate Brickman, Meredith, and team, money has been set aside to ensure that we're canvassing more than our traditional markets. And so we've expanded to Greater Minnesota to let folks know about what the opportunities are and focus on the positives of being able to come into the Twin Cities, into a career that allows for both stability, job security, and advancement opportunities. With that, we know, and I've been before both Transportation Committee and the Council, talking about some of the challenges of the bus operator position, and certainly we know that that sort of coverage and sensational news, as you will, doesn't help attract people to the role. So we're trying to ensure that people know what are the positive aspects of the job. This is a position where you can start at nearly $20 an hour as of August 1st. Because of the labor agreement raise, it'll be $19.92 an hour starting wage, including during your training. And then because of the progression that's identified in the labor agreement, it includes 5% pay raises every single year until you reach top progression, which is currently more than $28 an hour. It also includes paid time off, medical and dental insurance options, a state pension, as I mentioned, career development opportunities, job security, paid training, and a stronger than ever focus on job safety. So we know we've been taking this seriously for a long time, but we've redoubled our efforts, including the police work with onboard buses and trains, as well as our operator barrier pilot program. We've been looking at what are the additional interview testing and application assistance opportunities. At the instruction center on Tuesdays and Thursdays, we have hours set up with one of our staff, Lene, who's able to walk people through the process. So if there's any questions, any help that people need, we are over their shoulder, being able to ensure that people are prepped, ready to go, that there isn't a reason why somebody couldn't successfully compete for one of these roles. We've reevaluated our testing process and we've simplified it. We had a 3-step testing process, which included both a customer service, a driving, and a map reading exam. We've simplified that to one test focused on the customer service aspect to understand, are we recruiting and are people coming in with some of the characteristics that we believe are going to set up for a successful bus operator. The other two, more of the learned skills, the safe driving and the map reading, are things that we're teaching in the initial training and people are tested on anyways. And so we believe that that's starting to net results where we've seen a higher success rate for people taking the test. We're working on partnerships with labor. I've had many meetings with ATU to look at possibilities for letters of agreement or memorandums of understanding, additional incentive or reward programs for current or prospective employees. I have another meeting on that tomorrow, so I hope that we can gain some common ground, find some things that are mutually beneficial. Our first go at it last month was not successful with the membership. However, we're not giving up. We know that this is something that we need to work together on, and I believe that Ryan and company are game to try to help us work through this. And finally, reviewing a full-time pathway guarantee. Right now, because of our service profile, which is this, and I'll explain this a little bit for those who don't know, we need a lot of part-time employees. We have a contractual maximum of no more than 19% of our employees who can work weekday rush hours, yet what this graph is showing is that most of our buses need to be on the street during weekday rush hours. We also have a respect for what we have negotiated into the labor agreement as far as working hours. And so a full-time employee is not able, nor would we want somebody driving professionally to be working straight through for 12 to 14 hours, which is the span of service that we're attempting to cover. And so you can't, through our labor agreement, nor would we want to split somebody up and have them essentially living in the workplace. There's enough of us who do that. But what it does is it creates challenges. And so while everybody starts part-time, we need to make sure people know that there's full-time opportunities right now. It's about 5 months into employment, which is about the right time to be able to get some experience under your belt, know what it's like to be operating the bus through traffic, working with our customers, and then be able to go full-time when the opportunity presents itself. So we're going to continue to work through that. Finally, and most immediately, in addition to the day in and day out challenges that we're having covering work, has to do with the state fair. So state fair is just 42 days away, believe it or not. It feels like summer just started. However, it's going to be here before we know it. So for more than 25 years, Metro Transit has proudly served Park and Rides to be able to transport folks into the state fairgrounds for a $5 round trip fee. It's a great bargain. It's proved hugely popular. But there's a challenge and a cost that comes with that. Each weekday, it takes more than 80 additional buses on top of our regular service during each of the rush hours to be able to provide that service. When we're already facing challenges covering work for our everyday customers, it's hard to think that we should be going in without reviewing what our focus is during the fair, being realistic and being fair to everybody to set realistic expectations. So understanding our current predicament, we've determined that some changes need to be made so we can balance that service and provide the best service possible to both fairgoers as well, and most importantly to our everyday customers. So with that, we will be beginning weekday service starting at 9 a.m. In the past, it had been 8 a.m. That still didn't allow you to get there for gates opening when the sun is coming up. However, you were able to get an earlier start. Simply, looking at it now with the number of buses back here that we still have on the street between 7, 8, 9 a.m., it's going to stretch our resources too thin. And so we're going to be starting that weekday only service at 9 a.m. this year from those express sites. The Route 960 is our quote unquote local route service from downtown Minneapolis over to the state fairgrounds. This year it's returning to Nicollet Mall, which is great news, but we're going to be modifying the headway so it better matches passenger demand. We had been running a 10 to 15 minute service, but we simply don't have the customers that warrant running that service. And so allocating it, advertising a 30-minute service, we know that there might be a decreased incentive to take that service. However, it fits the scale of what that service is providing. Parade and Dunwoody presented a different challenge. As you know, many schools, whether it's higher education or secondary schools, are looking at when they start the school year. Dunwoody will be starting school before Labor Day this year, and we simply can't coexist during the morning when Dunwoody is starting and revving up. They're having great success with their enrollment levels, but what it means is that we're not able to access the Dunwoody overflow site from Parade until about noon. And so that change will be made. Weekend only at Oakdale, we've had redundant service. That's number 7 on the map here is Oakdale by the Mann Theater. We're going to be running that only on the weekends. We have a relatively new park and ride facility at Maplewood Mall that has sufficient space to be able to operate both the Maplewood and Oakdale. It saves us some staffing resources to be able to do this. And then finally is number 11 on the map, Newport. Newport was introduced 3 years ago, so this would have been its 3rd year. In its first 2 years, while seeing steady increases, it's still by far our lowest ridership location, and it really has served the purpose to offset some of the overflow from number 9, which is Cottage Grove. Trying to operate that, it requires 5 buses dedicated to that service when it represents about 2% of our state fair ridership. And so despite having some promise, we've had other operational challenges at that lot. The lot itself is very small if you've been out there, and so we've had to stripe and use grass area for overflow parking. When it rains, that's less than ideal, and we've had to have commercial tow come out and be able to drag cars around because of triple parking, and it's very labor intensive to try to manage and ensure that when somebody comes back from a fun day at the fair, they can actually drive their car home from park and ride. So we have significant space at Signal Hills with the closing of the Kmart at that facility, and we'll be using variable message signs and other means, including our online marketing, to direct people to Signal Hills should Cottage Grove fill, or from the greater market area what that Newport was drawing from. And finally, how are we going to let folks know about these changes, because they aren't insignificant? So we're ready to go and be publishing very soon with our online and printed material prominent notice of what these changes are. We recognize that there are people, we're all creatures of habit, who are going to show up at 7:45 and have $5 in hand, but we'll have people at the sites who are able to redirect and ensure that people know buses won't begin service until 9 o'clock. We know that this is not ideal, but when looking at where we're at, trying to be realistic, and also serve our regular customers, daily customers, day in and day out. We know that this is the right thing to do. Additionally, customers who've worked with us in the past by purchasing online tickets or through the app will be getting direct emails to let them know, so we know we'll be able to reach thousands of riders who have become repeat customers. So with that, I'd be happy to stand for questions.
Any questions?
Just,
Member Mulder?
Chair, just an observation, and certainly not to be critical of your presentation. Just this is, just my observation about regional balance. When we see 75% of the park and rides are, I'm not going to say west of the Mississippi, but it seems there's not a significant amount, certainly in the East Metro, and I know that I've got a few calls, not a ton, about the frustration about the service in Newport. So just making an observation and sharing a comment with you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Member Reynoso?
Thank you, Brian. I was under the impression that we subcontracted out some of the services for the fair.
Madam Chair, Councilmember Reynoso, so we do not provide subcontracting. We're in the process of exploring whether or not any of the providers who currently work with the council might be interested in doing Newport. That hasn't been fruitful yet, but we know that there's still a couple more, and so there's still an outside chance that that possibility exists. Thanks to Director Thompson's group, they've been trying to work on that in the background to see, are there alternatives? Are there other providers who might be able to deliver that service? Currently, most of the contracted service, if you will, is done directly by the State Fair. We did provide a lot more service for the Midway shuttles, some of the free park and ride lots up until about through 2008 when the FTA charter rules were changed. And so they now contract directly with other providers for those lots.
One more question.
Sure. Member Reynoso?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Brian, with regards to the park and ride in Blaine on 95th, it was very congested last year, and there seemed to be problems and nowhere to overflow. Any resolve with that?
Madam Chair, Councilmember Reynoso, that's a good point, and that's one of the challenges that it's gonna be a different challenge this year with the 9 a.m. start. What we've heard consistently from the park and rides that are at shared facilities with our regular service, especially our popular service like 95th, like County Road 73, and a couple of the others, Cottage Grove, is that our regular customers who are coming in for the 7:30, 7:45, 8 o'clock, 8:15 buses are displaced and jostled from their routine. And we know that this 9 o'clock start will be beneficial, and we think that that offset is going to lessen some of that confusion about where to go. Now, we still will and still expect that we're going to reach capacity at times. Last year was our first experience at 95th because we had been at the National Sports Center for several years before some redevelopment took over the spots there. And so we're keenly aware of that and are going to continue to address how do we communicate, how do we make this a little bit easier on everybody so that we don't have a mad scramble and we have at the ready areas where we can redirect folks to be able to find adequate parking.
Member Dorfman?
Madam Chair, Brian, related to the staff capacity issues, there are a number of government entities, I imagine throughout the region, I'm more familiar with Hennepin, that have more aggressive employment programs like the Hennepin Pathways program that I know we're connected to. To what extent are you sort of working through all these initiatives to help solve this problem?
I'm going to invite Aaron Koski, who's really working on the workforce development aspect, to come up and address a few of the things. I know we've had those partnerships and we've been working hand in hand with the county, so I think Aaron can probably take that on.
Thank you, Madam Chair, Councilman Dorfman. First of all, I apologize for being late. I know Brian did a great job. To answer your question about our relationship with other county government agencies, we have had significant relationships in kind of learning from each other as well as combining forces. The most pertinent example is we are currently set up 3 times a week at the Hennepin County Service Center, recruiting individuals, a great cross-section of the public who may have interest in becoming a bus operator. But process-wise and foundationally, we also are reviewing their best practices and kind of looking at adopting some of those more streamlined approaches that have worked so well for Hennepin County and others.
Great.
You know, I'm Madam Chair, and Aaron, I wonder if we can make this connection with some of the nonprofits that are serving people who are desperately looking for jobs as well as housing and others, and make sure that they know they can go to the service center and find out more information and, you know, connect more people in the community that way.
Madam Chair, Councilman Dorfman, I don't know if Brian, because I walked in right after that bullet point, but part of this supplemental outreach initiative employs and is partnership with 4 nonprofits in the metro area. Merrick on the east side, Twin Cities Rise, Metro-wide, Hired, and Emerge. And so we do that intentionally because they have credibility in the community, and also for individuals who don't meet the minimum qualifications, which we do have, there are significant minimum qualifications. We redirect them immediately on the spot to those resources to get their GED or additional technical qualifications they'll need for the job.
Well, and Madam Chair, I know on the Hennepin side, for nonprofits that don't provide employment services, we do in fact direct our clients to Twin City Rise and Emerge. So that's great.
Perfect. Member Elkins.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Brian, can you go back to the slide that shows service demand equals peak based? Yeah. So now that this is causing problems with our staffing, does this make management more open to considering pricing strategies that level off the demand?
Madam Chair, Councilmember Elkins, our overall fair policy and fair structure is something that has been an ongoing discussion. As we all know, we saw an overall fare increase last year, but there is work that continues to go on at Metro Transit. And I know that through both the Transportation Committee and I'm assuming eventually through the full council, there will be discussions about what those strategies are, forecasting what do we think is the right approach to balance demand to our ability to provide the service.
Thank you. Any other questions or discussion? I think this was really, oh, sorry, Member Rodriguez.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just want to thank staff, and I recognize that this is disappointing and that it's an opportunity to showcase our system over these 2 weeks, but I appreciate that the approach until we can get those recruitment efforts to be successful, prioritizes our everyday riders, and I think that's the best we can do right now.
Any other comments? Questions? If not, thank you very much.
Thank you.
So, Chair, if I may, I'd like to propose a motion that we move this meeting to be closed to the public to discuss with our legal counsel, attorney-client privilege matters relating to the pending litigation matter entitled Twin Cities and Western Railroad Company versus Metropolitan Council, Hennepin County Regional Rail Authority, and Sioux Line Railroad Company, and matters before the Surface Transportation Board that relate to this litigation, and that the accusation of the Kenilworth corridor, acquisition, of the Kenilworth corridor and Bass Lake Spur for the Southwest Light Rail Transit Project, and the pending litigation matter entitled Lakes and Parks Alliance of Minneapolis versus Metropolitan Council, civil number 0.4-CV-03391. So I'd like that to make that a motion.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
I think, is there any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? So at this point, there's a motion, and the motion has been adopted to close the meeting. All persons who are not directly representing or directly related to this issue should leave the room to attorney-client privilege. And I think we just need to give a moment to make sure that we're...
It's going to take about 2 minutes for them to shut down the system, so we're not streaming live.